Thank you so much. It's a lot of exciting stuff, as always. So thank you, Mark and Jordan, for showing us. I am going to turn it over to Tara um, for the Aspen Con report and poll.
I do not actually have the poll, I believe. Jordan was going to.
We do not.
Oh, okay.
I will post one in the Slack later today.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'll post it in Aspen Slack.
We will have a poll. But the AspenCon Planning Committee met, was it just yesterday? It feels so much longer ago. To talk about our options for having an AspenCon sometime in 2024. I believe the group was landed on sometime early March. Seemed like it would be a good time for most folks and dodge some of the ILS conferences like Koha and Cersei Dynex that happen annually as well. So we would be looking at March 2024, and we had a couple of locations come up as possibilities. So those were Oak Park near Chicago, I believe Aurora near Denver, and Yavapai put out Prescott, Arizona. So I think our poll is going to look at what locations would work for y'all. We're also looking at having a hybrid conference. So I want to get a sense of who would be willing to come in person and what locations would kind of get the most folks together in the room.
Thank you so much.
All we have for now. More to come.
Yay, stay tuned. There will be a poll, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you, Tara. All right, so quickly, we just wanted to welcome and call out some of our recently gone live libraries and some upcoming ones. So we had a few additions to the Metro Share Consortium, so welcome to them. Huntsville, Alabama went live. El Paso County Digital Library went live recently, which is, they're pretty cool because it's like an all digital resource online library. It's really neat. The Wild Consortium went live this week, as well as the City of Grapevine. I see someone with the Grapevine, yep, giving the thumbs up. And we will have some more additions to the Vocal Consortium in Vermont coming soon. So hooray! I've seen the thumbs up from Kim. Awesome. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Aspen Giving. Cal is going to talk about our annual, I guess this is a tradition now, our annual Aspen Giving issue of Aspen Weekly.
Yes, so it's already November 3rd somehow, and we are looking forward to our Aspen Giving, Aspen Weekly that we write the week of Thanksgiving. So you can check out last year's edition if you're not familiar with it, but basically we wanted to get all of your feedback in the community. There's a link to a little Aspen custom form, so built within Aspen, that you can fill out anonymous if you want it to be. But basically, we're just trying to gather from our community either things that you're thankful for, specifically like in Aspen. So maybe there was like a new feature that your library is loving or your community is loving, or just in general, like it's a nice time, especially in this climate of the world, to just celebrate libraries in general. So things that you just love about that's going on in your library or the library, library world in general that you want to share. And we will put it all together in the Thanksgiving edition of Aspen Weekly. And like I said, you can stay anonymous and just submit it. Or if you want your library to be featured, you can put your name or your library's name. So thank you for that in advance. And of course, all of us on the Aspen team will also be sharing with you what we're thankful for. So that's all I have for that. So I guess back to Morgan. Thank you.
Awesome. We can't wait to hear what you say. So please fill out the form. All right, so next on the agenda is new goals, new Aspen goals. So you may have already seen the Aspen Weekly come through. Jordan put together an amazing Aspen Weekly that takes a little deeper dive into what our old goals were and what our new ones are. So definitely check that out. I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat. But just to give you a quick overview of what they were and where we are now with our goals, let me go ahead and share my screen. Very quickly, if I can. I swear time slows down when you're trying to share the right screen. Okay. So these were our previous goals. So if you've ever been through an implementation, you probably heard them at kickoff call or saw them in the manual. And they were all totally fine goals, but over the last few months, we kind of have been needing to refine our goals and really shape where we want to keep going. So I think all of us would agree that on the Aspen team, we're pretty flexible and we like to adjust as we go along just to make sure that our focus is in the right place. So these new goals here, I'll just go ahead and read through them really quick. The first goal is to create a unified experience through deep integration with all library technologies. So it's really, as we've gone through every single release, we're trying to find different things to integrate with. So it's not just the content, it's not just databases, it's events, thinking about all the other different services that we can integrate with seamlessly. So your patrons can really have that, universal experience through Aspen. Second is we've kind of shifted this focus to maximizing user engagement with the library. So of course, we want your patrons to be able to find your events and your resources, but we also want Aspen to be kind of interactive, and we want to encourage your users to engage with your library in different ways. So engaging with the catalog, such as, recommendations and creating lists and things. But, just making sure that they feel like whenever they go to your site, whenever they explore your library through Aspen, that they can really kind of customize their own experience and it's unique to them. And that kind of ties into number 3 with connecting every user with a personalized and accessible library home base. So some of you, or hopefully all of you, are familiar with the different browse categories that you can add that are customized when users sign in. So your saved searches, your lists, your recommendations, just little touches like that to personalize the experience for your users, and make sure that it's accessible to your users as well. And fourth, it's kind of reworded from the previous one. So before it was make it easy for library administrators to customize. So we are focused on empowering library administrators to customize and expand Aspen in ways that make sense for your staff and your patrons. So definitely, like I said, read the Aspen Weekly this week to get deeper insights into all of these goals. And we hope that you agree with the goals and kind of our direction and our focus in the coming months and years. Anyone have any comments or feedback about the goals? Hope you all feel empowered. Right. Well, we have still a lot of stuff to talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to Jordan so she can talk about Aspen planning and priorities.
Thank you so much, Morgan, and thanks for sharing the goals. Like, it was really exciting to come together and think a little bit deeper about how all of us want to serve you through, and especially your patrons, because that's what Aspen's about, through what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Morgan, would you mind stopping your share and then I can get started? Thanks. Okay. So this is kind of the spot where we talk about a little bit of reflection over what we did. We like to talk about whether or not we met the goals of the last release. Most of the time we do, occasionally we don't, and then we talk about why. And then we talk about what we're going to do next. So on the left right here is what we said we wanted to do for you for this release. And on the right is what we actually did. So the kind of nice thing about this release is the list on the right is actually longer. Last time, Mark showed you kind of the deck that we use to talk about those locations and call numbers and the changes that we wanted to make there as a group. So we really wanted to call out that it just makes me happy when we can talk about it and do it right away, because I know it's fresh in all of your minds, and it's top of mind if it's something that we're talking about. Mark was kind of downplaying a little bit. I felt like during his demo of like, oh, we've done all these little things. But at the top of these lists every single month is partner priorities and high priority bugs. Those are all of those little things. Those are the things that you put in tickets on, and we really work hard to get a lot of those done. So we did get a ton done this release, and a lot of it's in support of the tickets that you're submitting. So enough about what we've already done. I made this a little bit bigger this time, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to read. There is also a PDF linked to in the agenda if that's easier for you to read than my screen. So this is our plan for the next release. As always, partner priorities and high priority bugs at the top. Improvements to linked accounts. This is something that came up at our last community meeting, and then at our last Aspen gathering, we advertised a special conversation around linked accounts. So I'm going to share in a little bit the outcome of that conversation with some of you and what we're planning to do there. Also updates to name fields. So this came up at another partner meeting, the Symphony users group, of wanting to support preferred name. And I have another slide that I'll wait to talk a little bit more about that, and we'll get into a few more of those details. We have a few more things we want to work out with the facets and filters, and maybe you could catch little glimpses of those today. So we're going to do a few more things there. And then the last one is one that a number of people, we need somebody to mute themselves. Thanks. The last one is something that I've gotten a lot of questions around. How do I know if somebody else has submitted this question? How do I know who else is asking for this? That we've been really wanting some transparency around within the community what other people are asking for. And I want that feedback from you as well. I want you to have that transparency. So we started this work back when we did the RT integration in Aspen. So you can see all of your tickets within Aspen. And the next pieces of this work are going to be kind of creating development tasks out of those tickets. Some of this is for us on our side. I don't think after this release, all of you will be able to see some of this work. Some of it's us organizing, but then we would like to be able to make those public so you can see what each other has requested. We're not going to make the tickets public. We'll just have summaries of the tickets, and then you'll know which tasks your ticket's attached to, and you'll be able to kind of express support for each other's ideas. The other thing that this is really good for is coordinating the additional developers working on Aspen. Mark showed at the bottom of his screen that this release, we had contributions from 3 different organizations. Unbeknownst to us, 2 of those organizations were actually working on the same feature because we don't have a centralized place for people to raise their hands and say, I want to work on this. So we'll have that. So we won't have 2 people kind of working on the same thing. It will also give you more insight into what's being worked on currently, because that's another question we get from you is how do I know when this is being worked on? So the goal is short term for us to organize that better for everyone working on Aspen, longer term to make that clear to all of you so you can all express support for what development you want to happen next. Okay. So that's the normal, that's what we're doing next month. I mentioned we had the meeting on improvements to linked accounts. This meeting was just last week, and there were about 15 attendees there, which is great. That's a good number of people to have in a room working through this. And it was honestly a little bit easier than I thought. We kind of came to consensus pretty quickly after we were able to list the problems. So I'm first going to talk about the problems that the group found with the way that we currently do linked accounts, and then the solutions that we brainstormed and that we'll be working on for this release. And then I'm going to ask anyone, if there is anyone here, did we miss anything, or if there's any additional conversation that we need to have around these. So the problems that were identified by the group were trying to unlink accounts. The way to unlink accounts currently in Aspen is with a pin update. And that is not ideal for a couple different reasons. Chanel Yavapai gave us the best example. She said that she has a couple school libraries, and their elementary school students, they are always forgetting their pins, but their parents also want to link to their accounts. Now, for privacy reasons, the librarians can't look up the pins in the ILS, so they're changing their pins all the time, and then the parents can't see the accounts. obviously we needed to fix this for them. And it solved a couple of other problems as well, or unlinking the pin with the linking solves some problems too. Because just because you set your pin doesn't mean you want to break that link. Those two don't always go together. The second problem that we identified was that when a patron is linked to, we don't do enough to let them know. So first of all, the only way we let them know is within Aspen. So if they're not logging into Aspen, they don't necessarily know that anyone has linked to their account. So we are going to go ahead and also have an email. So if they have an email, well, I'm already getting into solutions. I'll get into solutions next. It's just the way I have the problem, and then I want to solve it. I'll keep going through the problems, then we'll talk about it. The third problem was patrons can't block links from individual accounts. So if someone's linked to them and they don't want it, there's not an easy way to just block that individual. There's also not an easy way to just say, I don't want any linking at all. Like, don't involve me in this, like just no links. And then finally, librarians want to be able to manage these tools by patron types. So maybe you want to say, patrons, these elementary school patrons, they can't disable linking, for example, because you want the parents to be able to link to them. Or maybe you would want a setting that says what the default is, whether the block linking or not block linking is on. So those are the problems. Now we'll get to the solutions that the group came up with. So for the first proposed solution, when two users link, that link will be perpetual. It will no longer be tied to that change of PIN until someone unlinks it. Linkies will be notified by email. If we have their email address, we can't do anything if we don't. And they will be notified in Aspen that they have been linked to. We will also make that they've been linked to more obvious. Before it was kind of buried within linked accounts and they would get a notification at the top, but that was dismissible. The example was brought up, a child is going to maybe be linked with their parents when they very first get a library card. But then as that child becomes a teenager, maybe they don't want their parents knowing about their library, what their library borrowing habits are anymore. But they don't even know, haven't even realized that their parents still linked to their account. And the same might be true for couples that are separating. Maybe you've had linked accounts before and you've forgotten about it, but we kind of need to be able to see that a little bit better. So we're talking about making that not like right in your face, but in a place where you're going to see it. Fourth on the list is linkies can break a link without needing to update their PIN. We already said that. Next, when a linkie breaks a link, again, not by updating their PIN, they're going to be warned that maybe they do want to reset their PIN because if somebody has their account number and their PIN, which they needed to do to set up the link in the first place, their account isn't secure. And then when we can, we'll link to that PIN reset page. Patrons will have the option not to allow anyone to link to their account. Like we said, just say, no, I don't want any linking. And then Aspen administrators will have those tools by patron type. So for all of the librarians that were at that meeting, is there anything that we missed or anything that you wanted to add to the conversation, or to anyone that wasn't at the meeting? Are there any questions for me or the group that put this together?
So later on, this is Jenny in Nashville. We have a thing called approved users. I don't know if anybody else does this, but there's no real functionality in our ILS for it. What happens is, you know, someone comes in and says, I want so-and-so to be able to pick up my holds. And it's kind of an outdated thing, because if you have the number, you can just type it into the self-check, you know. I mean, there are ways to get around making it official, but our staff seem to have conflated this idea, and our patrons have conflated this idea of linked accounts with an approved user account. So our problem, which isn't huge, but is sort of growing with the linked account use, is that frontline staff, patrons come in and say, I want to check this out. And frontline staff say, well, you're not an approved user on this account. And the patron says, yes, I am. We have a linked account. You know, they just like assume that these are the same things, right? And so this is like kind of a weird ask. James says he can do it, but what if we got rid of this idea of approved user, and if they linked their accounts, we just popped some info in a note fields for staff, right? Like we wrote back to the ILS that the accounts are linked in the discovery layer.
I have heard similar requests for that
Yeah.
kind of staff use case. And it gets a little tricky depending on what's allowed in the ILS, because with the different ILSs, they have like
Right.
the same thing, similar fields that kind of mean different things. So we don't want to imply one thing with another. But I really like the idea of finding a place within the ILS, again, assuming the APIs allow it, to kind of give the staff member the heads up that this has happened, because that's really the problem they're trying to solve. And we've heard people trying to solve it by updating those fields that just don't match.
Yeah, I mean, staff can fix this with some extra steps, just like going into Aspen, masquerading, and seeing that the accounts are linked. It's not the end of the world for staff. It's just, and it's kind of just a learning curve, maybe. But
it's not efficient.
It'd be easier if there was something there they could just say, oh. And I think patrons get it confused too. I mean, I think in Nashville, I'm going to try to push to get away from this approved user idea, even if we don't get this functionality, because I think it's really confusing for patrons, right? If we have to push one or the other, not both, right?
Yeah, and we could probably find a way to make some messaging so that, you know, at Nashville, you could have a policy that says this is what linked accounts means, and they're essentially opting in by linking those accounts.
Yeah. Right, they're essentially opting into being an approved user and being able to pick up holds and things like that. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, just a thought, like writing something into the ILS, and then you also have to have the function of pulling it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is tricky, I get that.
And it might be a little different by ILS, but that sounds like a really good round 2.
Yeah, I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you. No, that's really appreciated, and not the first time we've heard that. It didn't come up at our meeting, but not the first time that I've heard that request. Has anybody else been thinking something similar? Or anyone else have any comments on this one before we move on?
Actually, Jordan, this is Daniel from Pueblo. I was wondering, when do you expect these changes to be implemented?
So we're going to start working on them. We're going to start working on them this month. So improvements to linked accounts. I'm not quite sure how far we get with them. I would say at the very least, we will get the ability to turn them off for patrons. This is Jordan's guessing land, and I am not a developer. So do not hold me to this. We do the best we can to guess, but we're not perfect at it. We might get up to the patron types, the permissions by patron type. We don't have permissions by patron type now, but if we didn't have that, I think we could feel comfortable launching it. I don't think we want to launch a bunch of the linking functionality without those additional notices and the information in place that we kind of talked about in the solutions. Does that help answer your question?
It does. And actually, okay. I've got kind of a follow-up. So when you make these changes, will it be an on and off option, or will it, because I'm concerned about it just continue before everything is implemented, if it would just follow up what we have on our ILS, the settings set there first, and then having the option to migrate or change it over to discovery.
So it doesn't, a little bit, it doesn't connect with any settings in your ILS right now. Okay. And it won't with this first round of changes. Everything just exists within Aspen.
Okay.
And that is how it works today.
All right.
Any other questions on?
I have a question on number 6.
Yeah.
This is Teresa from Spokane. So on number 6, are you giving your clients the ability to either only allow certain age levels or certain patron types to say that they're not going to allow somebody to link to their account?
So for number 6, this one is a patron functionality that says, yes, as me as an individual, you can either link to my account or you like either anyone can link to my account, and to link they have to have barcode and PIN. So it's saying, yes, I allow linked accounts, not literally anyone can. Or no, like don't even offer that option, block anyone who tries. But that's at an individual level. With number 7, we will allow the library to have permissions per patron type. So if you have a group of patrons that you didn't want to link at all, you would have the ability to say, like, don't even offer them linked accounts. We don't want them to have linked accounts. Or you might have some like kids. Again, this isn't for a public library. This would be for a school library specifically, although you could do it if you're a public library, to say like kids cannot turn off account linking because we have a school policy that says their parents can link to their accounts. Does that clarify that?
A little. If you have it set then where on the administrator side that nobody under 13 can say, somebody can unlink my account, my parent can unlink my account. So can you then go in individually and say, no, this customer is okay to do this, or this, you know, like again, that age level is emancipated. So, you know, there's so many variables.
There are, and that's why, like, we do actually on the admin side right now have a couple of settings for individual patrons to override these. The settings in number 7 would be more for specific types of libraries or unusual types of cards. So for public libraries, we would imagine you kind of have a blanket policy that either says allow linking or don't allow linking, and then that would kind of apply to everyone. I'm worried I'm not getting at the heart of your question though. So what part am I missing?
No, that's okay. I mean, if you're not allowing exceptions, you're not allowing exceptions. And I don't have mine up and running yet, so I'm not looking at the back end or anything and seeing this in reality yet.
Yeah. But as we're building this, as you see the settings, if you have feedback on that, like, please share for sure.
Thank you.
And Cal is posted in the chat if anyone wants to brush up on how linked accounts is currently working. We have good documentation on that. We talked about this in the group too. There are a few bugs with the notifications. It was just too detailed for this until it came up just now. And there are a few bugs with the notifications that we'll be working out as part of this too. So if you're testing it and you're like, wait, there's this weird bug with the notification, we'll be fixing that. Anything else on linked accounts? All right. Next, updates to name fields. This is the one that came up at the Symphony users group. Symphony specifically wanted to support the display and update of the preferred name field out of Symphony. I think that's a great idea. It's definitely something we should do. It kind of reminded me of some requests we'd gotten from a couple Polaris libraries that was about supporting adding and updating the patron username. So their patrons can select their own kind of username, and they just wanted that functionality from Polaris within Aspen. And then earlier this week, I put the call out kind of to the community to say, hey, does anybody else have something like this that we should just tackle it all at the same time from their ILS? And these are the results that I got. So within Koha, they do have a pronoun field right now, and we want to make sure that we support that. Within Sierra, we can support the display and the update of the preferred name if the API is allowed. I should say that in some of these cases, we know they do. We're not sure about all of them. They'll take a little bit more investigating. This is more of an intention. There are also additional patron names within Sierra. We're going to need to dig into that a little bit, but we can with this. With Carl X, they want support for the legal name field. And then with Evergreen, they also have display and update a preferred name. Any comments here or anything that you feel like with these name fields and updating you'd like to add to the list that you know your ILS supports and you've been missing in Aspen?
Are you talking about, you're just talking about name fields, right? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, pronouns kind of goes with that in my, like, names or what people prefer, how people prefer to be represented in the catalog to themselves.
I'll just add that on the Polaris end, the username thing, that is the #1 ticket that we get from our libraries or in question from our patrons. So we're super excited about that getting done, because it's like the thing that's like we still need to point them back to the old catalog for. So getting that done is going to be great.
Yay, I'm glad we could do that for you. All right. Again, this doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. I know not everyone wants to speak up in a group, or like maybe you think of it in the middle of the night. You can always Slack either me or the general Aspen Slack channel if you have more thoughts on this. One last thing, this is not something we need to necessarily decide today, but it's come up a few times. OverDrive has a plan to switch from sort of their patron-facing branding from OverDrive to just Libby. They have the two products right now, and I'm sure if you have OverDrive, you've seen, they've probably been putting out messaging saying they're going to Libby. Some partners have already done this because we have the translation functionality, and they've changed OverDrive to Libby, and you only ever see Libby in their catalog. Mike that was just speaking is an example of that. If you go to a main library, it's Libby or nothing. I did reach out to the product person at OverDrive to find out a timeline for when this is going to flip. And it doesn't sound set in stone, but it also sounds like they're going to try to get it done within 6 months. So just to kind of give us a time frame there. And I just heard back from her. Kind of how do we want to handle this? It's a lot of work for all of you to go into your catalogs and use translation mode to change it to Libby when OverDrive is not going to be a thing anymore. So this is really kind of at what point do we want to, well, I'm assuming the solution is for us to just change where it says OverDrive to Libby and call it a day.
So is OverDrive getting rid of .overdrive.com, like Nashville.overdrive.com? Is their website of our collection going away? Because it sounds like OverDrive isn't getting rid of OverDrive. They're just trying to focus on the app. Like,
this has been a huge issue for our consortium. So let me jump in and
please
can make it a little bit clearer. So they are doing the whole like, oh, but people are calling it OverDrive and they should be calling it Libby. OverDrive is the service. And I have not heard anything from OverDrive, the company, that OverDrive, the service, is going to change names. Libby is merely an app that lets you access the service. So it would be incorrect to refer to the service as Libby. It is merely an app. So we have decided to mostly use OverDrive/Libby, so that whichever way a patron thinks, whether it be correct or incorrect, they will still do what they need. The other thing that's confusing with calling it Libby is that there are plenty of ways to interact with that content that's not Libby, right? So I use the Kindle format for reading books. And so Libby hardly enters into my mind at all. So it's just very messy.
yeah, I agree. That was my understanding of it too. That's why I question whether OverDrive is really doing away with OverDrive as far as the word OverDrive. I think it's going to keep showing up, but maybe not. I mean, they could change it to, Libby.com, I suppose.
Just to
They
jump
own
in,
that domain. I don't know.
they actually are pushing the Libby web app, and some of our libraries have already switched to using that instead of the, OverDrive URLs.
Yeah.
So
they do have it in a Libby.
But again, that is the name of an application to access OverDrive, the service. So it's like for the Symphony people, workflows and Symphony are not the same thing. Workflows is a tool that you use to access Symphony, the database.
The way I like to think of it is you have the company and the product. So you have Symphony from Cersei, and then you have Libby from OverDrive. So OverDrive isn't going away, but from in a patron's mind, my understanding is that they're trying to eliminate the references to OverDrive, the company, in favor of Libby, the product.
we did specifically ask our account rep about that OverDrive, like that your library.overdrive, and they said they don't have any current plans of sunsetting that specifically. So that is still a thing and will still be a thing. But yeah, I'm kind of caught in the middle of that because, as you mentioned, Maine, even before I got here, they already decided Libby, at least for the patron facing things. Like I kind of want staff to still know what the word OverDrive means, like particularly new staff, because you still need to go into the OverDrive. Like when you're purchasing materials or looking at the reporting, it's OverDrive on the staff side, but patron facing, they're really pushing Libby across the board.
How are they? So if we don't do anything and we don't support their push to push everyone to the Libby app, who cares? As long as Aspen works, I don't care what it says.
And
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want
yeah.
to change it. I don't want to change what patrons are already used to it. Like the ones that have adopted Libby, they know what Libby is. You know what I mean? Because I'm the same way that, I don't remember who it was, but I do the same thing where I just check out from Aspen and have it and get it on my Kindle reader. I don't go to Libby either. Anyway.
And you can all do exactly what you want. That's why we have translation mode. That's the beauty of it. We're just looking to, if we want, it's opening up the box of worms. Do we want to change the default so people don't have to do anything? And I'm kind of getting the sense that maybe we want to table this for now and wait. That people that care right now have things changed. And if we don't care, like you can change it if you want to, but otherwise we're good. Is there anybody that really wants us to take action soon? I'm looking in the chat, or you can speak up.
No, but I if OverDrive is really trying to make this effort, when all of our links link to overdrive.yln.info, so our own, branded instance of OverDrive, there's nothing in there that says go use libbyapp.com. It's there. And it's more full featured. It's more full featured than what Libby app is.
We did confirm that those links won't break. So nobody's going to have to update those links. We did ask OverDrive that question.
Right, but the thing is that link might very well redirect to Libby app.
Right.
But there is nothing, they aren't doing anything to push people from that OverDrive site over to the Libby app site, other than maybe some marketing.
They are end of lifing their current OverDrive branded app.
Yes.
So that will go away. I posted this in the chat, and it's probably for another time, but I just wanted to raise the question. When we started Aspen, we sincerely hoped that that most of the users would go through Aspen to access our e-content like OverDrive or Hoopla. We're not seeing that that's the case, and I wonder if we're an outlier or if that's what you guys are seeing. But we see someone finds their favorite app and they just stay there and they don't hardly ever go back to the catalog, which makes me sad. It tells me I have an internal marketing problem. But anyway, just raising the question.
One kind of has the same, but we do get we could get a good bit of traffic for Kindle users. That's where we see most of our traffic for e-content.
There are some more comments coming in the chat. We are going to have to wrap up pretty soon because we're right at time. I see kind of a vote for waiting. Someone agreeing with Sam that we're losing people to those silos. And then another kind of vote for waiting and with doing everything. So I think we'll probably hold off if you can, like we said, change the language whenever you want to. to be whatever you want it to be, whether it says, well, it says OverDrive by default to say Libby, or like Chanel said, to say both. So yeah, I think that's where we'll stay for today. Anything else, Morgan, for today?
I think we did, Elise needs to give a quick update about upcoming listserv changes.
Super duper quick. Hey, everybody. So the Bywater Aspen Partners listserv will be moving to Google Groups as of December 1. So nothing, you don't have to do anything. We're moving everybody over. It's going to be the same address, which is that Aspen Partners at bywatersolutions.com. So yeah, and then also just want to remind everybody, we have 2 really great programs, the Community Give Back and Librarian of the Month. I'll share the link to the Community Give Back. We give away $500 a month to a library to do cool stuff. This month's, or the past month's winner was Plum Creek in Minnesota. They're doing an awesome mini staff retreat in December. And yeah, and then if you have a librarian you want to nominate for Librarian of the Month, please email outreach@bywatersolutions.com. That's it for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. All right. That is it for this month's Aspen Gathering. Thank you all so much for some wonderful discussion today. Don't forget about some of those things on the agenda. I'm going to drop the link into the chat one more time so you can grab it before we go. But we have some surveys you can fill out and other ways you can interact with us. All right, we will see you again next month. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thanks.